This is a very simple project built with PyScript and Flask. Flask on the backend side and PyScript as the front end. The main idea of this video is to show how to use only Python both for backend and frontend. I wanted to show how to make AJAX asynchronous get and post requests with a PyScript to Flask application and how to manipulate DOM with PyScript. The front end of the project is written with PyScript. When I'm clicking on the red button, PyScript sends a GET request to my Flask application and gets a random number from 1 to 10. When I'm clicking on a card, PyScript sends a POST request to the Flask app and gets the float version of the sent numbers. And again, the video is about how to use PyScript to send the GET and POST request to Flask and how to use PyScript to manipulate with DOM. So, I have here a very basic Flask project. It has only one URL pattern that says that all requests to the root address will be handled by the index function. And the index function just renders to a user the index.html template as a response to his GET request. In its turn, index.html template has only one button. It looks like this. Also, there are two empty unordered lists on the page, the left and the right lists. In the index template, I also attached Bootstrap and a CSS file to add some styles for list item tag. As the video is about PyScript, let's add it to the project. So I need pyscript.net website install, and here I want to get only the script tag and paste it somewhere here. And now let's create a new Python file in the static folder. Let's say that'll be just script py file. And now I have to attach it to my Flask project to use with PyScript. To do it, I want to add in the index template a special HTML tag before the closing body tag. PyScript and its source attribute will be the path to the script py file. It's the static folder and script py. Now let's start with something very simple. I got a button on the page and I want to set a click handler on it, and I want to get the hello world message when I'll click on this green button. So first of all, let's add to the button an ID attribute. Just button, for example. Then the onClick handler will be defined in the script py module. Let's open it and let's create a new function, the onClick function, for example. Def onClick. That will take an event from the browser as an argument. Then I want to get an HTML tag to render the hello world string. Let's say it'll be the UL tag with the left ID, the left one. Left UL, for example. And to get needed tag, I have to use the get element by ID function and passing into it the ID of the UL tag. Then I'm setting the inner HTML property to the hello world string. Left UL inner HTML that equals to hello world. It's an event handler, and then I have to set an event listener on the button. So let's create a main function. And now let's get the button by its ID. button document. And to set a listener on it, we have to use the add event listener method. Button add event. The first argument, it gets the event, it's a click. And the second argument is the result of the create proxy function from pyodide module. Pyodide dot, and I'm calling the create proxy function. We have to create proxy objects of our functions so JavaScript can use them as callbacks. So, as the arguments, I'm passing to the create proxy function the onClick function. This one, as an object. I don't call it. And that's it. Let's import pyodide module. And I have to call the main function. Let's test it. I'm clicking on the Go button and we can see the Hello World message. Okay, the next step. Now let's say that the AJAX request should be sent to the server, to my Flask application, when a user clicks this green button, and Flask will generate a random number and return it to us. Let's start with the front-end part, that is with PyScript first. By the way, I changed my mind and I want to add a red button. So in index.html, I'm copying this button. The ID will be a red button. The text will be get number. And the CSS class will be danger. The AJAX GET requests will be sent when a user will click on this red button. And so we need to define a new function that will send the GET request. And then we have to set an onClick event listener to the red button. So let's create a new function. Somewhere here, for example, let's say it'll be makeRequest function. And I want to use this function to send GET and POST requests. So it should take 3 arguments, the URL to send request to the method, and the headers parameter that will have a default value, none. Then, first of all, in the body, I want to set headers to a request if no headers passed into the makeRequest function. If not headers, then the headers variable will be a dictionary with 2 headers. And then I'm going to send a request to my Flask application with a pyfetch function. Pyfetch is a wrapper for JavaScript fetch function, and so it uses the same API. So the response variable will be the result of the pyfetch. But the fetch function is an asynchronous function, and so we have to use the await keyword. And accordingly, the makeRequest function should be asynchronous too, async. And of course, we have to import the pyfetch function from pyodide http import pyfetch. And now let's make a request to our Flask app with the pyfetch function. The URL will be URL, and the returning value will be just response JSON. await response variable, and I'm calling the JSON method. Okay, this function will just make requests, get or post to our Flask application. Now we have to define an onClick event handler, a function that will do something when a user clicks on the red button. So let's define a new, for example, getNumber onClick function. It takes an event from the browser as an argument. And here, first of all, I have to send a request to Flask application and get its data. So I'm calling the makeRequest function, but it's an asynchronous function, and therefore I have to use the await keyword. Data will be await, and accordingly the getNumber onClick will be asynchronous. And I am passing to the makeRequest function the URL argument, the root URL, and the method will be get. Okay, we got some data from Flask, and now I want to append this data as a last item to the left UL tag here. To do it, first of all, I have to get the UL tag with the left ID, UL that equals to document or, by the way, we can use the query selector function. The hashtag means the ID, dot means a class. I need a ID. Then I have to create a tag I want to append to the UL tag. It's a last item. So the document create element. I want to create a list item. As the text of list item, I want to use the number I will get from the Flask application. So list item inner HTML will get the value of the number key of the data object. Okay, we got an event handler function, and now we have to set an event listener to the red button. So in the main function, let's get the red button. Red button, document query selector, and its ID is the red button. And again, to set an event listener, I have to call the addEventListener function. It's a click and the proxy. getNumber onClick as an argument. That's it with the front end, and now the Flask side. Let's import the rand_int function from the random module. Then in the index function, let's get the random value from 1 to 10. From 1 to 10. And I'm going to send to the front end this random number. My response to the PyScript client side should be a JSON serializable object, so I have to use the JSONify function. Let's import it from the Flask module. JSONify. And let's return the number variable to front end, to PyScript. And I am passing a dictionary with the number key, and its value is the number variable. But if I refresh the page, the browser will generate a GET request to the root URL, and instead of my page we will get the number F5, and we get the number f5 again, JSON object. To fix it, I have to check whether the request was an AJAX request or not. To do it, I have to use the isJSON property of the request object. Let's import the request object. Request. The isJSON property will return true or false. It should return true because we set the content type of getRequests as application JSON. So, if the request was an AJAX request, the index function will return this JSON object. Otherwise, it will render our index template. Let's try it again. It should work, but let's look at our script py again. So we got the response from Flask, we got UL tag, we created list item tag, but I forgot to append UL tag with this list item. So let's do it. UL append child, and I am passing list item as an argument. Now let's test it. F5, get number, and we can see the numbers that we got from Flask, and it's fully asynchronous calls. The next thing I want to do is to send an AJAX post request with a PyScript to our Flask app. We got a list of these cards with numbers, and I want to send an AJAX request by clicking on each card, by clicking on a card. It means that we have to create a new function, a new event handler, and then set an event listener to cards, to list items. So let's start again with PyScript, and we need a new event handler. And the logic is absolutely the same. First of all, I have to define the onClick handler. It's a sync function. Send number on click, for example. It takes an event from the browser. I want to get the text of this list item tag, and the event object has the target attribute that refers to a certain HTML tag on which the event occurred. So the number will be, I'm using the event object, its target, and I want to get its text, inner HTML. The next step is to send a post request with this number. So the data from the server will be, we are awaiting the response from the server. We make request. The URL will be root. Method this time will be post. The body will be number. And of course, I have to add a new parameter body to the make request function. Make request body, and I have to add it here, body that equals to body, and I think that its default value will be none, because head and get requests cannot have body. Okay, we made a request and got some response. Now I want to append the right UL tag with the data we got from Flask application. This tag. So let's create the UL variable and let's get the UL with the right ID. Document query selector. Right. And let's create a new list item tag. Its text will be data. Let's say the key will be data. And then let's append it to the UL tag. UL append child. And the last thing we have to do, we have to set an event listener to a certain HTML tag. It should be the list item tag in the get number on click function, because in that function the list item tags are created. So somewhere here, let's add event listener. The event will be click. And I'm passing the send number on click function to the create proxy function. I think that we've done with the PyScript frontend side, and let's turn back to the Flask side. First of all, I want the index function can accept get and post requests. Methods, it's a list, get, post. Then I also have to separate get requests from post requests. So let's check the HTTP methods of the request objects. So if request method is get, the response will be the following. And now I have to get the text of a card of a list item and process it. So the text will be float, and I need the data attribute. I'm using here the data attribute because in this example I don't use any HTML forms. In most cases the data attribute of the request object will be empty. And if you use a form in your templates, you have to use the form or the JSON attribute of the request object. The request's data is an attribute where Flask stores data of request body when Flask couldn't parse it as a form data. I don't use forms, so I have to use the data attribute. The request data are always a bytes data type. I wanted to use the float function to convert it to float, because we will get numbers in the post request. Then I want to do something with the text variable. So let's say that the text variable will be inserted to the f string. For example, new text, it's an f string. I got, and let's say the text here. I use the data key because here I said that I will use the data key. And it gets the number, new text as the value. Let's test it again. And it's working. I got 3, 10, 7, 3, 3. So right now I see only one real disadvantage of PyScript. It's an initialization time. I think that this technology has a future because we wrote a front end using Python only. It's Python and it's great. So if you like this video about PyScript and about how to use get and post requests and basic DOM manipulations with the PyScript, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.